Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jared Foyer, and I am the Executive Director of National Faith and Blue Weekend. I thank you all for taking your time to join us. I know that you have a lot on your plates, and we hope that this will be an informative and valuable kickoff conversation to National Faith and Blue Weekend. And with that, I would like to turn it over to Reverend Markel Hutchins, who will take us forward.
Thank you, Jared. As Jared suggested, I'm Reverend Markel Hutchins. I'm Chairman and CEO of Movement Forward. We are a modern and inclusive, solution-focused human and civil rights organization based in Atlanta, Georgia. Over the next 45 minutes, my team and I are going to present to you National Faith and Blue Weekend. It is just over a year old, but it has quickly become the largest and most collaborative police community outreach project in American history. About 2 years ago, I became very concerned about the tone and the tenor of police community engagement in our country. There's just been too much tension, too many tragedies, too many officer deaths, too many citizen and resident deaths. We've got to find a way. I would ask you all to please remain muted and not unmute yourself until such time that we have an opportunity for questions. But we have just seen over the last several years just too many tensions, too much fighting, too many riots, too much loss of life of innocent people. I recognize that we needed to create a movement in our country to draw law enforcement and communities closer together like never before. So in April of last year, our organization partnered with the U.S. Department of Justice Office of Community-Oriented Policing Services, or COPS office, to bring together all of law enforcement nationally for the purpose of figuring out a pathway forward, how we could cause communities and law enforcement to better see the humanity in one another, to connect together across our differences. In April of last year, several weeks before George Floyd was unfortunately killed in Minneapolis, Minnesota, all of those national law enforcement groups came together with our organization, and we conceived of this National Faith and Blue Weekend. The idea was to bring us all together in every neighborhood and in every community to focus on the things that we have in common, because when we focus on our commonalities, we find that there's more that unites us together than there is that divides us. And with that, all of law enforcement decided we needed to create a movement in this country to bring law enforcement and communities together like never before. There are those who are seeking to divide us one from another on every turn. But our aspiration through National Faith and Blue Weekend is to build a historic movement that will unite law enforcement and communities together to reduce the tensions, to increase the safety, to increase the preservation of life of officers and of community residents at the same time. So in April of last year, all of law enforcement came together with our organization, and we came up with this concept of a National Faith and Blue Weekend. We decided to host it last year in October for the first time. It was October the 9th through the 12th, the second weekend in October, Columbus Day weekend. Essentially what we did is we took the best of national community policing principles that have been learned over the last 30 years. We took the best of 21st century policing models. We took the best of national outreach programs like Coffee with a Cop and National Night Out. We put them in a real context of power and influence by putting them in the hand of the faith community. We extended them over the course of a long weekend, put a real mission and an agenda of unity, of justice, of reconciliation, and public safety. And with that, we created National Faith and Blue Weekend. In the first year, it was historic. It was enormously impactful and powerful in communities all across the country. So now that I've kind of given you the background of what Faith and Blue Weekend is, how we got here, I'm going to now share my screen with you, and my staff and I are going to give you a detailed presentation about what National Faith and Blue Weekend is, the purpose of this effort, and how your communities can take advantage of this National Faith and Blue Weekend. So again, this year, National Faith and Blue Weekend, I'm so sorry, it looks like my computer is freezing. So again, this year, National Faith in Blue Weekend, like it was last year, is the second weekend in October. It's October 8th through October 11th. It's Columbus Day weekend, and it is a 4-day weekend, Friday, October 8th through Monday, October 11th. The mission of National Faith in Blue Weekend is to facilitate safer, stronger, more unified, and more just communities by enabling collaboration and partnerships through facilitating relationships between faith-based organizations or through the community and residents in communities and law enforcement agencies through faith-based and community organizations at the local neighborhood level. So again, the mission is to enable or to facilitate safer and stronger communities by engaging law enforcement officers and local residents through the connections of faith-based organizations, schools, churches, synagogues, mosques, temples, all kinds of faith-based organizations. There's nothing inherently religious or sectarian about National Faith in Blue Weekend. We simply recognize that there are no other assets in our nation that have the same power to unite law enforcement and communities, to build the bridges, to break down the bias and the barriers like the faith community. There are 350,000 houses of worship in the United States of America. 65 million Americans attend some form of a faith-based service every week. So again, there are more volunteers in faith-based organizations than any other organizations of any kind. So these houses of worship, these faith-based organizations, these schools and community groups represent an enormous capacity to unite law enforcement and communities together, to decrease the bias, to decrease the tension. Essentially, what we're doing with Faith in Blue Weekend is we are powering a movement where law enforcement and residents come together, have mutual understanding that powers and creates a movement across this country that builds those bridges, that decrease the tragedies on all sides. We have to come together as sisterhood, at tables of sisterhood and brotherhood. As long as we have some Americans in one corner yelling "Our lives matter," and a different group of Americans in a different corner yelling "Our lives matter," there's very little good that we can achieve. But there is no limit to the good that we can achieve if we have the courage and capacity to sit together and reason together despite our differences, because when we do so, we're able to actually come up with solutions, and we find that there's more that unites us together than there is that divides us. I mentioned this earlier because I think it's important. Every single major national law enforcement professional and membership association is partnered together for National Faith in Blue Weekend. It is the three agencies in the federal government that deal most directly with local policing: the U.S. Department of Justice COPS Office, the Office of Justice Programs, and the Bureau of Justice Assistance. Those are the three entities in the federal government where most law enforcement agencies get their local funding from for body cameras and police vests and all those kinds of things. All three of those entities were anchor partners in the creation of National Faith in Blue Weekend. In addition to that, the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, our nation's largest law enforcement agency, is a formal partner in National Faith in Blue Weekend. Along with them, the federal law enforcement officers, the police unions like the International Brotherhood of Police Officers and the Fraternal Order of Police, all the police unions are partners in this effort. In addition to them, the National Sheriff's Association, the major county sheriffs, the International Association of Chiefs of Police, major city chiefs, the affinity groups in law enforcement like the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives, the National Organization of Women Law Enforcement Executives, the International Campus Law Enforcement Administrators. All of these organizations, the Hispanic American Police Command Officers Association, all are partnered together in this effort, along with police think tanks like the Police Foundation and the Police Executive Research Forum. This makes this effort the largest and most collaborative police community outreach project in American history. Never before had the nation's police chiefs and sheriffs and unions all come together. Law enforcement across the board recognize that there's a need for some changes. We have to shift. We have to make some changes. But we cannot do it by just relying on law enforcement to do it for themselves. We have to build these bridges. I have led, as the promo video suggested, marches and demonstrations across the country over the last 25 years. But at this moment in time, we have to do something more than simply march and protest. We have to turn to each other. And the only way we can do that is through collaboration, through conversation. And that's what National Faith and Blue Weekend is all about. In addition to all of the national law enforcement groups, this year we're delighted to be partnered together with chiefs and or sheriff's associations in 47 of the 50 states. That means that there's organizing going on in states and cities and counties throughout our country. 47 of the 50 states we are formally partnered together with. We're working as hard as we can to build a movement that actually builds community and unites law enforcement with residents to reduce the violence across the board. And all of law enforcement is working with us. Last year, in the inaugural Year of Faith and Blue Weekend, as you can see on the screen, there were 1,000 events across 43 states plus Washington, D.C. This was in year one. I want to remind you, we did not begin thinking about this concept until April of 2020. By the time we created the resources, all of the collateral, the training materials, built a website, got funding, by the time we did all of those things, it was somewhere between the middle of July and early August before we had an opportunity to really begin to plan. So within a 3-month time frame, there were 1,000 community events held across 43 states and Washington, D.C. What this says is that there's a real hunger, there's a real thirst in our country for solutions. People are tired of the tragedies. They're tired of the tensions. They're tired of officers giving their lives in the line of duty. They're tired of innocent people losing their life. But the way forward is a collaborative one. We have to cause law enforcement and communities to get to know each other, to see the humanity in one another. That's the only way we're going to reduce the tragedies and reduce violence at the same time. The success of Faith and Blue Weekend in its inaugural year, October of 2020, says that Americans of all kinds absolutely want solutions. The pins that you see on your screen represented on this map are the numbers of events that happen in communities of every kind. These events happen in one of 3 formats. They either happen virtually, they happen in person, or they happen socially distanced and are streamed live over the internet. So all of the events are done in one of those 3 ways, and they all have a dual purpose: to reduce the tensions, reduce the strain and the stresses, but also to improve public safety. That's a 2020 at a glimpse in an inaugural year. Now we're going to get into the weeds, the nuts and bolts of how to take advantage of National Faith and Blue Weekend. There are faith leaders and faith communities and community leaders across the country that are part of this meeting, as well as law enforcement agencies. So I'm going to bring on now Ryan Yarrow. He's our National Director of National Faith and Blue Weekend. He's going to share with you the next couple of slides, and then I'm going to come back and show you live on the website, which is where all of the magic happens. We're going to show you how easy and convenient it is for all of these resources to be made available and for you to take advantage of them in your local community. Ryan?
Thank you, Reverend Hutchins, and good afternoon, everyone. So what we tried to do with National Faith and Blue Weekend is we wanted to streamline it and make it as easy as possible, not only for law enforcement agencies, but also for our partner faith organization. And so what we did was we spent a lot of time and resources in faithandblue.org. And so if you haven't seen it, I definitely suggest at your earliest convenience, please visit faithandblue.org. And so what we've done with that is you have the interested host would visit faithandblue.org. On the website, the host would read more and download a planning toolkit. We'll go into much more detail about the planning toolkit, but the planning toolkit in a nutshell is it's an all-encompassing document that contains everything that you would need to host a National Faith and Blue activity successfully. After that, the event host would register the event on faithandblue.org. The event will then be held utilizing the checklist in the toolkit, and then after the event, the host will submit a short write-up and photos to nationalfaithandblue.org so that we can post and make sure that we're creating a movement, as Reverend Hutchins alluded to earlier, that includes stories, pictures, and media from all the great events across our great nation. Just as easy as it is to submit an event, it's even easier to find an event. And we did that so all local events and all events registered could be easily found on our website by everybody and anybody in any community. So for that, you would need to go to faithandblue.org. And on that, you would search for a nearby event using the address and map feature. You can do that using, if you have a smart device, there's a use your current location. You can type in the address, or you can use the interactive map. And once you found your closest event, you would see the details, including the location, the participating organizations, and the date and time. And then, of course, if you can't find any events that are close enough to you or any ones that you would like to attend, you're always more than welcome and actually encouraged to create your local event and organize something on your own.
Thank you, Ryan. So now we're going to take you live to faithandblue.org. One of my colleagues is going to share his screen, and we're going to take you live to the website and quickly walk you through the steps that Ryan just articulated. We created this website with a number of our partners in law enforcement, and we created it so that it would be easy and simple for anyone in any community to take advantage of this website. So we're going to first start off by showing you how to submit an event. So any community organization, any faith-based organization, any law enforcement agency seeking to be engaged can go to submit an event. We'll click on submit an event, and there you would put in the information around the events that you're intending or planning. You would put in the name of the contact person or coordinator. You would put in an email address and a telephone number. Those things are not made public. It is just so that our national office will have somebody that we can send information. We can send you updates. There are resources that we have available. And I want to tell you right up front, there's no cost to any community organization. There's no cost to any faith-based or law enforcement organization. Thanks to the generosity of our sponsors, all of these resources are made available at no cost to your organizations. But you can put in that information there. You're also able to put in information about your specific events. So you can put in the event name. You're able to put in the host. So it would say First Baptist Church of Wilmington, Delaware, or it would say the First Jewish Synagogue of Portland are partnered together to do whatever it is. So you put the host information in there. If there's a website for your organization, you can put that website link in there. Specifically, if you create a page off of your website around National Faith and Blue Weekend, you can put it in there. Then you can go in and click one of these types of events. So there are 30 different types of events that we have listed here, but you're welcome to invent your own unique events. So if you create an event that is not like any of the ones that are listed, you can click on other and enter in the specific type of event that you are creating. So you'd put that in there. Then you would put an event description in. You can put what your event is all about, what the purpose is, who's involved, the various elements that you're putting into the event. You can put all that information in there. Then you would click on the date. So again, October 8th through the 11th of 2021 is National Faith and Blue Weekend. So your events would be held over the course of National Faith and Blue Weekend on those days. So you put it in there. You'd enter in a start time and an end time. And by the way, you don't have to put in all of this information at one time. You don't have to put all of the information in at all. You can put the information in it is that you have available to you. So as you begin planning your events for Faith and Blue Weekend, if you don't have all the details, you can certainly input what it is that you have, and then you can reach out to us and we'd help you to update those events. So if your event is a virtual event, you would click on the virtual tab, and you would be able to then put in the location of your event. So the Zoom link or the WeStream link or YouTube or Facebook or whatever it is that you're using, you can put it in there. If it is an in-person event, you can click on in-person, and you will then see that it unlocks the ability for you to put in the location name. So the name of the house of worship or the name of the school or the name of the organization or park or wherever it is that you're doing these events, you're able to put that in there along with the address, the city, the state, and the zip code. And once you submit those events, within 24 hours, those events will appear on the national map. So we're going to take you now and show you what happens when you submit those events. Anyone in your community can go to faithandblue.org. Again, that's faithandblue.org, and click on Find an Event. Once one clicks on Find an Event, you're able to find all of the events that are happening around the country and in your local community. So this map can be utilized. All the pins that you see in red on the screen are events that have happened. These are 2020 events. We left them up so that we could show you an example of what these pins look like. And this is a Google map, so it's highly interactive. You can zoom all the way down to a local neighborhood. So you can search by utilizing a map. This is one of the reasons why it's so important that we make sure certain that your events get registered, because that's how people in your community will simply be able to go to faithandblue.org and find the events that you've put together. Then they can also search by including the state name, so they can search by every state. They can also utilize the tab that's right next, or the box that's not right next to state. They can input in their address. They can input their address, put in what their location is, and they'll see all of the events that are happening in their immediate area, or the closest events to them. We also have a feature that will allow you to enable your location, and GPS will detect where you are and show you all of the events that are happening around you. So these are some of the ways that people can actually find events. I want to now click on one of these events so you see the kind of detail that has gone into planning this website, making it most easy and convenient for you to take advantage of. So we'll click on one of these events. This event happens to be in Clayton County, Georgia. It says a Clayton County food distribution event. So all of the information that would be entered when you register and submit the events, it appears here on the Find an Event tab. So you see the when, you see who it's hosted by, you'll see an event description on the far right of your screen. You see the map, again, that can be utilized to find these events. You can also see the location of the events. Right beneath the location, there is a tool that will allow people in your communities, once they find the events that they're interested in, once they find the events, because you point them to faithandblue.org and you tell them that they can find all of the details about your event, they're able to then share those events very quickly and easily by clicking on one of these icons. They can share it to Facebook, they can share it to Twitter, or they can share it to their LinkedIn. So all of these resources have been put together to make National Faith and Blue Weekend turnkey. And we're going to continue to show you some additional resources. We have absolutely thought of everything that any faith-based or any community organization and any law enforcement agency will need to be successful organizing for Faith and Blue Weekend. Before we leave this website, I'm going to show you the resources. So the resources tab at faithandblue.org has, again, every single asset that your organization will need to be successful in planning National Faith and Blue Weekend exercises. There's a toolkit, there's a banner, there's posters, there are thank you cards, there are t-shirts, there are logos, there's an overview in both English and Spanish, there's a save the date card, there's an impact report. All of these things are there for you to utilize. There's no need to ask for any permission. You can create whatever it is that you want to create, and all of these resources are created and they were designed with your local community in mind. So while all of them have the national branding information, they're all locally focused. So while we're creating this national movement, the events, the activities are owned by each local community, by each community organization or faith-based organization and their law enforcement partners. I want to show you just how customizable these resources are. We're going to click on the tab that says poster, and I want to show you all of these elements, all of this collateral, all of these resources were designed very high quality, and you'll be very impressed, I hope, with everything that you see. So for the hosted by, you can click there and you can customize this. So you can say the first Muslim mosque of Topeka and the Topeka Police Department are partnered together. So you can customize them there. You can also customize them under the when and where. So you can put in the specific dates. Again, this year, Faith and Blue Weekend is Friday, October 8th through Monday, October 11th. So you can put the date, the time, the place, and what your event is. You can put it there. Then you can download these resources and print them out internally, or you can take them to your local printer. All of the color codes for all of the posters, all the banners, all the t-shirt, all of those things are there and available for you to use. So I just wanted to show you very quickly some of the elements that we have available and some of the resources that are available at faithandblue.org. So now I'm going to bring in one of my colleagues, Hannah Thompson. She is our events and outreach coordinator nationally. She's going to share with you some of the resources as they look once they're developed. Hannah?
Thanks so much, Reverend. So you all got to see these resources in action on the website. But here on this slide, you can see what those resources look like once they've been executed, once they've been customized. So beginning here on the far left of the screen, you see that thank you card and that save the date. Again, once you filled in your event details, these can be great resources to share over social media to let folks know that you're planning on hosting an event for Faith in Blue. Moving to the right, you see the t-shirt that we have. Again, that graphic is all on the website for you to use and download. And on the front of that t-shirt, you'll see we have the national logo and our national sponsors, but we intentionally left the back of that t-shirt blank so that you can put on your own logos. If you're working with other vendors in your community that are donating resources, you can put their logos there on the back as well. We've left that intentionally blank so that you can customize it. Right beneath that t-shirt, you see the front cover of our planning toolkit, which Jared is going to go in depth and give us a real in-depth overview of how you can use that toolkit in just a minute here. Moving to the right, you see the National Faith in Blue Weekend banner that can be printed in a large format. It can be used advertise events, or if you do one of the events in the toolkit we have, the Unity March, you can print that out and you can carry that if you're going to do a march as one of your activities. And then moving on to the right there, you see the overview of Faith in Blue Weekend. Again, that's available in English and in Spanish. And then on the far right there, you see the poster, which Dr. Lawson just showed us how we can customize that based on who's hosting your event and the dates and the details for the event that you're hosting. So this just kind of shows you an overview of what all of those resources that we've spent time developing for you to use, what they look like once you have customized them for your own uses. So from here, like I said, I'm going to pass it off to Jared, who's going to give us an in-depth view of the planning toolkit.
Thank you, Hannah. So as Hannah suggested, I'm now going to provide an overview and an introduction into the planning toolkit, which is really the cornerstone, along with the website, of organizing activities for National Faith in Blue Weekend. We developed this planning toolkit last year, and we heard a lot of feedback about how helpful it was. When we designed it last year, we had 20 sample activities. But because of a lot of the great activities that others designed that we hadn't even thought of, we have expanded it to 30 sample activities. As I'll share later, this does not mean to be the only activities you can organize. What we wanted to do was give you as much of a starting point as possible so that you can organize an activity that makes sense for you. And if these sample activities are the ones that you want to do, then that's all the better, but this does not have to be what you do. For the sample activities, there are 10 what we call quick activities. These are activities that can be designed and implemented in just a few hours. These include things like sending greetings or having a meet and greet, but they really are not a large lift, and they allow you to just get out to the community in as easy a manner as possible. There are also 20 full activities, and these are activities that take a few days, maybe a little longer, up to a week to design and implement. In terms of design work, each full activity has already been designed. So what you'll see in the planning toolkit is that for each activity, you have an overview, which includes the materials that are needed. It talks about the purpose of the event. It talks about the location, where you would ideally have this event. It discusses the role for the law enforcement agency and the role for the house of worship. It talks about how to use this particular activity to create connections. It's not just enough to have the activity. You want to use it to create that community engagement. And so we offer tips for how to utilize the activity in that way. It includes a planning timeline, so leading up to the event itself, and it includes the day of steps, so what to do on the day from start to finish. And then for every full activity, there is a virtual option. So this is a way where if your community is not able to come together, or if you just want to make the activity more flexible, there's a virtual option as well. The toolkit has checklists for getting started, planning, and wrap up. It has sample scripts. So if you want to reach out, if you're a house of worship and you want to call a law enforcement agency and you're not sure what to say, or if you're a law enforcement agency and you want to call up a house of worship, we have a script for here's what to say. There's a sample media advisory. So if you want to let the media know about it. And then there are frequently asked questions. In terms of the sample activities, there are 4 buckets of activities that we came up with. And this shows that we really wanted to be a very flexible and resonant activity that makes sense for your community. So for some communities and for some agencies, what they want to focus on are creating connections. And so for those activities, you can have everything from a picnic to a trunk or treat to an open house where people can come and see equipment and meet with officers. And so those are intended to be a more social form of engagement. For those who want to cultivate partnerships and create that type of deeper engagement, there's a community service project option. There's a community policing project. This year, we've partnered with the National Red Cross to make it easy for you to host a blood drive in your community. There's also another grouping of activities that utilize arts and culture to promote peace and safety. And that includes a festival that's for music or for art or a dance contest. And then finally, the last grouping of activities are about fostering dialogue and understanding. And this is about really going under the hood and talking about some of the important issues around law enforcement and police these days. And so for that, we have community dialogues, we have essay contests, we have a book discussion, and we have a peace, justice, and unity march, which I will talk a little bit more on the next slide. So this is a sample of an activity spread that you'll find in the toolkit. So this is activity 5, and this is the Peace, Justice, and Unity March. And this was an activity that we designed last year because we heard there was so much about people coming out on the streets, but in a divisive way. And we wondered, what about if you can bring people together to come together, to work together, to echo each other's voices in unity, and to be each other's partner. And so that's what led to the formation of this particular event, a Peace, Justice, and Unity March, which is one of the more popular activities. It gives an overview for the activity, so it provides an introduction. It talks about the materials and the location, as I shared, the role of the house of worship and the role of the law enforcement agency, how to create the connections, you have your planning timeline and your day of steps. And finally, it offers how to utilize this event for virtual programming. But I want to reiterate that these are activities that are intended to be a resource for you. You can absolutely, and you can, and you should come up with your own activities, but we hope that this will give you everything you need to get started. Reverend?
Thank you, Jared. I want to reiterate something that my team has said. All of these resources are there as examples and samples, but you know your community's best. You know what your community needs. You know what the discussions and the interaction and engagement needs to look like. Thanks to our sponsors, FirstNet built with AT&T and the Motorola Solutions Foundation, there's no cost. We're not asking for any donations or contributions. We're not selling t-shirts or banners or anything like that. We put these resources together with one goal in mind, and that is to better the relationship between law enforcement and communities of every kind. So I want to tell you now some of the core elements of every National Faith in Blue Weekend event. We want them to involve at least one faith-based organization or community group and at least one law enforcement agency. The thing that makes National Faith in Blue Weekend different than some of the other police community outreach projects is this is not just law enforcement reaching out to the community, and it's not just the community reaching out to law enforcement. It's the faith community and law enforcement coming together and reaching out collaboratively to the community at large. The solutions to the challenges we face in our communities lie in the residents, in the people of that community. You know what your community needs best. There's a lot of discussion around the country about the need for police reform, and there are some reforms that are needed. We need to modernize the way our officers are trained and those kinds of things. We need to talk about universal use of force and all of that. But the greatest need for reform in our country today is relationship reformation, cultural reformation, causing officers to get to know the people that they're policing and causing people to get to know the officers that protect and serve their communities. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. used to talk about the difference in the vocal minority and the silent majority. The truth of the matter is the silent majority, the vast and overwhelming majority of the people in our country support law enforcement and want to make it better. That's what National Faith in Blue Weekend gives us an opportunity to do, to promote the voices of the silent majority that needs to come forth and get involved, not sit on the sidelines and simply talk about some of the challenges, but actually getting involved. So that's a core element. The second core element is we want these discussions, these events, to be productive and solution focused. So it's not just about one narrative over another. It's not about trying to evangelize your perspective. It really is about trying to understand the perspectives of others. So trying to understand the work and the difficulties of the law enforcement professionals that protect and serve your communities, trying to understand how your community can get involved and really make a difference to change the dynamics, to shift the discussion from us versus them to us and them, how we can come together in every local neighborhood to promote policies and practice and culture and language that recognizes the humanity of every person in your community. So we want them to be productive and solutions focused. Number three, we want these events to be community facing. So it's not just about your house of worship. It's not just about your synagogue or your church or your faith-based organization. It's not just about the law enforcement agency reaching out to one congregation. We want these events to be community facing. This gives every house of worship a chance to really get engaged in a solutions-oriented, productive way on the issues of the day. It's not just enough for a congregation to put Black Lives Matter on a sign outside. We've got to dig deeper, and National Faith in Blue Weekend gives you an opportunity to bring everybody to the table of sisterhood and brotherhood and figure out a pathway forward in your local community. We, number four, want the events to be easy for people to partake in. We ask no one to charge for anything. There's no cost for any of the materials, so we ask you not to try to charge people in your community to be a part of these events. You're welcome to get sponsorship. You're welcome to get local businesses to be engaged. The faith community often has resources for community outreach things, but we ask you to make this easy for people to partake in. And finally, we ask you to make sure that your activities are engaging and interactive. This is not just about somebody giving a speech, somebody giving a lecture. It's not just a dictatorial thing where somebody's being talked to. This is supposed to be interactive with the intent of actually building a movement to change things in your local community. So we've got only about 5 minutes left, and then we're going to let you go. But I want to share with you finally just why we think you should be engaged and involved. Number one, this gives us an opportunity to create some connections with one another. It gives law enforcement and the faith community and other community organizations an opportunity to connect with folks. The faith community and law enforcement is an ideal partnership because it gives every house of worship, every synagogue, every mosque, every temple, every church an opportunity to connect with the people in your community on the issues of criminal justice and policing, both on the police community relations side to turn down the temperature, but also rebuilding the trust and increasing the public engagement in matters of public safety. This is not just about one single religion. It's not about religion at all. Last year, there were 35 different faiths that participated. There were Christian churches, both Catholic and Protestant. There were numerous Jewish synagogues and Muslim mosques and Buddhist and Hindu temples. It's all faiths coming together. The idea is not to evangelize your religious beliefs, but to evangelize humanity, having faith in one another. Secondly, it gives you a chance to build ties with influential community leaders. It gives law enforcement a chance to build ties with the faith community that has collectively the most influence of any group of or any kind of organizations in your local community. And it gives the faith community an opportunity to build partnerships with law enforcement so that we can begin to do some creative and innovative things. We can't continue to arrest our young people, lock them up and throw away the key. The faith community has got to get engaged. And this is an opportunity to build that kind of, or to at least begin building that kind of rapport between law enforcement and the community at large. Because faith-based organizations are event-based, they're based on an event every Saturday, every Sunday, or every Wednesday. The best way for law enforcement to begin building those relationships or strengthening them or rebuilding them is by doing an event, law enforcement and the faith community together. Number three, this gives us an opportunity to promote some positive stories in your local community. So positive stories utilizing radio and television and newspapers. There's been so much negativity. There's been so much demonizing on all sides of these issues. Here's an opportunity for you to create some positive social media and some positive traditional media stories. But it also gives your local communities an opportunity to be a part of a national movement. National Faith and Blue Weekend is happening in thousands of communities across the United States of America, and we hope you'll get involved and make it happen in your community as well. This is indeed a national movement. There's never been a movement for positive or progressive change in our country. The civil rights movement, the movement to end apartheid, women's suffrage, every movement in the United States of America in history has been led and anchored in the faith community. It's time for the faith community to stand up and take your rightful place at the center of these discussions about how we take the difficult moment that we're in now and move our nation forward. And that's what this National Faith and Blue Weekend movement is all about. So here are a couple of quick steps we'd like you to take to get involved. Number one, we hope everyone on this call will visit www.faithandblue, that's faithandblue.org. Secondly, we ask you to begin posting on your social media platforms and publicly announcing your organization's participation in National Faith and Blue Weekend using all of your digital channels. Social media has been largely used to divide us with so much misinformation. There's a lot of good in social media, so we can take social media and traditional media and turn this negative moment into a positive movement to reduce the violence on all sides and increase public safety in our communities. Please use the hashtag #FaithAndBlue. We would love for each one of you to write a post today on your personal platforms as well as on your business platforms, just talking about what you've heard and what you've seen in this presentation. Use the hashtag faithandblue.org. We're building a movement, and social media is one way to be able to do that. Number three, we ask you to consider participating in Faith and Blue Weekend. Organize as many activities as you can over the course of the 4-day weekend. Again, this year, National Faith and Blue Weekend is Friday, October 8th through Monday, October 11th. It's Columbus Day weekend. It's the culmination of National Community Policing Week, and we want every community in our country to be able to take advantage of it. I hope that you see we've put together every resource that you can imagine. This process is absolutely turnkey. You can really make a difference in your community by tapping into the resources that we've made available to you. So on the screen now, you have the website. You can reach us via email at info@faithandblue.org, info@faithandblue.org. We have partnerships with law enforcement associations and law enforcement agencies across this country. If you reach out to us, we'll put you in touch. If you're a law enforcement agency and you need connections with faith-based organizations, we're working with organizations of every kind in the Jewish community and the Catholic community and the Protestant, Baptist, United Methodist, all of the major religions, Buddhist, Hindu, Islamic organizations. We will put you in touch with and get you a list of faith-based organizations in your community. We have a coordinator who is responsible for each one of the states. We've broken them down into regions. So if you'll send us an email at info@faithandblue.org, the appropriate staff person will respond to your email, and we'll be of whatever support and help we can to make sure National Faith and Blue Weekend is an overwhelming success in your community. You can also reach us by telephone at 404-605-7000. Again, 404-605-7000. That concludes the presentation today. I'm going to call back my two staff persons that are leading on this, Jared and Ryan. Did I miss anything? And if not, I'm going to call upon a few of the participants in this meeting and ask them to give us some feedback about what they've heard. Ryan, Jared, did I miss anything?
Reverend, you hit every note.
Yep.
So first I want to call upon, I see Troy Martin, would love to hear from you, and Deborah Blaylock. if you would unmute yourself, we'd love to hear from you and get some perspective. I'm just hopping around the country. I didn't give anybody any advance warning, but I just want you to know that we just want to hear from a few of you. So Troy Martin would love to hear from you. And then Deborah Blaylock, just tell us where you're from. And then I'm going to go to Janice Montgomery, who I believe is in Birmingham, Alabama. Mr. Morton?
Good afternoon, sir. It's Troy Morton again from Maine, the president of Maine Sheriff's Association. We've heard your presentation a couple times, and we are super excited to participate. The resources are wonderful for those that have not been able to get there. Great resources, and we're really looking forward to getting this moving. We have our first meeting with many groups in our area, and we're excited about the October events. So thank you.
Thank you. Deborah Blaylock, where are you from? We'd love to hear from you.
Okay, I'm Deborah Blaylock, and I'm with Faith Chapel Church in Birmingham, Alabama. And we missed this event last year, so we did some nice stuff for our police department in our area because we missed the event. So I wanted to make sure this year we did not miss it. So, and today gave me a lot of clarity because I had no clue what it was, but I know I will need at least to be connected with someone in our police department. I believe in collaboration, not trying to do something all by yourself or out, left hand need to know what the right hand's doing. So I know I would need to know who within the Birmingham Police Department is my contact person to talk about how do we collaborate and how do we make this great.
Your contact person happens to be on this call. It's Janice Blackwell. It's really weird because there are people from coast to coast on this call, but Janice Blackwell is from the Birmingham Police Department.
Okay.
Go right ahead, Miss Janice.
Hello, so I'm Captain Blackwell with Birmingham Police Department, and we participated all 4 days. We had a community talk. We did a youth talk as well as a virtual concert and a food drive. So this year we are working on participating this year. And so hopefully you will be able to reach out to me and I can connect with you because we want to try to get as many churches in the city involved. And you can reach me if you can write right now at 205.
We will share that information, Ms. Blaylock, so you don't have to share it. There's a lot of people from across the country on this call, but we'll share that information, Ms. Blackwell, with Ms. Blaylock.
Okay, I'll send it to her.
Okay, Reverend Keith Winton, and then Russell Younger, and then Melissa Congleton. I'm sorry. But Father Winton, and then Russell, and then Melissa, and then we're going to close out this session. Any questions you have, please put them in the chat, or again, you can reach out to us. Father Winton?
Yeah, thanks. I'm in Omaha, and I can't thank you enough for doing this. I texted a couple of my other folks who were on this call while you were speaking, and it's just said, preach it. Because I think I've had to do a pastoral letter out to my congregation just a few weeks ago because, even internally, people were shouting each other about reaching out to the wrong people and trying to be that glue in the community that builds it together. And I said the mission of the church is to be the repairer of the breach. Yes. If the church does not try and get people who are shouting each other to talk to each other and see each other as human beings, who will?
Yes.
And I'm so excited for us to be able to participate in this.
Thank you so much. Russell Younger?
Good afternoon. Thank you for having us. Russ Younger, Deputy Manatee County Sheriff's Office. And I tell you something, this is a great program. We work a lot with our different community outreach programs to help a lot of folks that are in need. And this is one of the needs that we need to bring together our communities. And, just a negative media that we've had so far with law enforcement and the communities. And we want to get rid of that and let people know that we're there to help them. And this is one way of doing it. And it's a great opportunity to be a part of. And I, once again, thank you for having me here.
Thank you very much. And finally, where are you from, Melissa?
Yeah, Hi there. I'm from the Episcopal Diocese of Michigan. We're in the mitten between Lansing and Detroit. And I'm also a police officer at Michigan State University and a priest. So I
Wonderful.
kind of have both hats here. And so I can see it from the police side. And we definitely, from that perspective, need to rally some more people for the job, the industry, and some quality people, and a lot of change going on. So just a lot of opportunity there, and a great opportunity for faith communities to assist in what that change looks like in our local communities. So we're pretty excited about it.
Wonderful. We have a partnership with the Episcopal Church nationally. So your presiding bishop, Bishop Curry, is very much engaged in Faith in Blue Weekend, and I'm sure that there's been information that has been shared and will continue to be shared from the national office of the Episcopal Church. So thank you again to everyone for joining us today. We hope that in addition to operationalize what you've heard and what you've seen and felt today, I hope that each one of you will help us to spread the word. We need this kind of engagement in our country today. Again, there's never been a movement in history that led to systematic and lasting change that did not involve the faith community. And this is a chance for us to stake our place and begin to be, as Father Winton said, repairers of the breach. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you will get involved and encourage others in your network to do the same. God bless you all. Thank you.